Hi, welcome to Lupus Speaks Podcast, where we shine a spotlight on lupus who are bossing it in business, inspiring others, and making a mark in the lupus community. I'm your host, Shedrica Holmes, on a mission to showcase the incredible journeys of lupus warriors turned entrepreneurs, influencers, and advocates. So get ready for empowering stories, insightful conversations, and a dose of inspiration. This is not just a podcast, it's a platform for you to dream again. So join me as we explore the possibilities beyond lupus and celebrate the resilience of lupus community. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It's another episode of Lupus Speaks Podcast. And today I have a very special guest, Miss Genny Mack.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Shedrica.
So it's so nice to finally meet you and talk to you. I was coming across social media and I just had to get some of your wisdom on this whole experience for you as far as holistic nutrition
Mm-hmm.
and how it really has, just from what you've shown, how it has impacted your life and transformed your lupus symptoms and your whole experience with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, my first question is, Ms. Genny, could you share with us your personal journey with lupus and how it has influenced your path towards holistic nutrition?
Absolutely. That is a very powerful question because, as you mentioned, that's why I do the work that I do. I started my lupus journey when I was first officially diagnosed in 2017. So, going on 7 years of still learning lupus. But it really was that moment when I was hospitalized. I felt like I'd lost control of my health, right? I felt like my health was in the hands of doctors, my rheumatologist. And I asked my doctor this one question that literally changed my entire perspective on how we can take control of our health. I asked my doctor at the time, the rheumatologist, I said, okay, so I'll take my medication, but what do I eat with lupus? Right? And her response was, eat whatever you want. And I knew that was not the answer to the question that I was looking for. So I started to search for the answers, right? I started to do research and I found this diet protocol or this way of eating or this information that says, don't eat this, don't eat that. And to be completely transparent, I was confused. I was overwhelmed. I tried a lot of different methods that ultimately that they didn't work for me. So that transformed me to really focus on this journey and figure out, okay, what works for me. And it was a lot of trial and error. I had my first severe lupus flare in 2018. I started my holistic healing journey. I started studying to become an autoimmune nutrition specialist in holistic nutrition. I started figuring out that it's a whole body approach. It's the mind, it's the body, it's the spirit. It's really going deep into those emotional traumas that we are honestly fearful to do that, right? But I figured out that once you started to tap into self and listen to your intuition, that's when you can really transform your health.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Just because it is deeper than the food. And it's
Mhm.
unfortunate that, your doctor would just say, whatever you want to do, just do it. Like, okay, so
Mhm.
then what's your job? Because you're supposed
Right.
to help me. Don't you know
Exactly.
the answer? So I really applaud you for really taking initiative to really take it on and really like study it and be helpful to the community.
Mm.
Um, I mean, it's just so much that I admire you for. I was checking out your website and I was like, yes, it is giving.
Thank
It
you.
shows exactly what you do and how you can help. And I'm just inspired by that. So, what inspired you to really help women with lupus through this nutrition? And you also do movement coaching
That's
and you
right.
call yourself a renowned chef. So how
Renowned
fun
chef.
is that? Because I love to cook.
Exactly. Yeah. So, what inspired me to help women in the lupus community? So, the evolution of my journey has changed, right? With all of our journeys, right?
Right.
When I first started studying to become a holistic nutritionist, I discovered the power of eating whole foods. So, specifically, plant based foods, foods that come from Mother Nature, right? That are nutrient dense, that provide a good source of vitamins and minerals. I went all into that, right? And I actually transitioned fully to be what I called at that point a vegan, a plant based vegan, right? And that really prepared the first part of my journey. I'd say the infancy stages of really understanding how food can support you in your healing journey, and that got me into remission for 2.5 years, right? So I
Okay.
was free from lupus symptoms. What I would say back then, I was living my best life, right? Until COVID hit. And then I was hospitalized again. I was sick. I was sicker than the first time, where I felt like my entire body was shutting down. My organs were impacted, and I was just very sick. So I say all of that to say that originally I was speaking to an audience that wanted to adopt a plant-based vegan lifestyle, right? Because that worked for me. I researched how it worked for many other people, and then it was working for my community too, until I got sick again. And I realized, and this was after COVID, that's a different story, but I realized that, the body needs different things at different times, right?
Absolutely.
We are very complex individuals to start out with. The body has a complex system. So we need complexity, right? And something that is very specific to our needs. So I went away from this, I would call a rigid way of eating, even though there are over 20,000 plant species, right? So it's not scarce in that sense. There's so many different plants that you could try. I wanted to understand what my body needed, and I determined that my body needed more protein, right? My body
Mm.
also needed more iron so that my anemia improved. My body also needed other things like calcium or omega 3 fatty acids that are very rich in fish, right? Such
Mhm.
as salmon or mackerel or sardines, those canned foods. So I started to open up the spectrum of understanding different foods that could be beneficial that our ancestors ate, right? So really just tapping back into that innate intuition to say, okay, what does my body need now? So I've expanded my approach to say, okay, still focus on eating whole foods that are nutrient dense, but let's think about all of those different vitamins and minerals that the body needs, especially based on the particular individual circumstance, right? So that's how I transitioned from focusing on whole food, plant based vegan to whole food, you know, animal foods as needed to really give the body that full spectrum of nutrition. And then the reason why I'm speaking to people with lupus, because we are an underserved community, right?
Absolutely.
Majority of individuals that have lupus are women, women of color, right? So if you look at the space of healthcare, the system isn't really shape for us, unfortunately. So I felt that it was my responsibility to speak to people that look like me, that can relate to me, so that when I'm talking about things like we just talked about, um, the risk of getting your nails done and using the UVA rays, I'm speaking to my community, people that
Right.
understand, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I ended up here today.
Well, thank you for that. I feel like a lot of what you said is so not easy to do. Like it's
Nope.
not easy. I've tried vegan. I've tried
Mhm.
just vegetarian, I've
Mhm.
tried so many different things just because when steroids blow you up, you just like, I just
Mm.
want to lose this weight. So I know I can't eat this junk food because I know that's not going to help me. So I've
Mm.
done different things like that, but I've never been able to stay consistent. And I don't even know what
Mm.
my diet is now at this point. So
Right.
what is your advice for being consistent and like really um diving into transitioning to your old eating habits, and like how do you make that easier
Mm. That's a very powerful question, and I know how hard it is, right? I can speak on that too, as being one human,
right?
someone that also has lupus, but being a nutritionist and still being confused with this system because there's so much out there in the media to tell you what you shouldn't eat, right? But
Right.
what the media fails to tell us is what should we eat. And to answer your question more directly, how do you stay consistent with your eating habits and your lifestyle? So I would say the first thing is to you have to make a commitment, right? You have to say, look, I know that I don't want to feel pain, right? I no longer want to feel pain or swelling in my joints. I want to lose some weight. I want to lose that prednisone weight. I want to sleep better at night, right? So I think the commitment and the affirmation is very important to allow yourself to show up for yourself every single day. That's the first thing. Secondly, I would say find an accountability partner, right? So you've already committed to changing your habits, right? To showing up for yourself every single day. Find someone, whether it's partnership or friendship or social media, right? Find someone that can keep you accountable because, like you said, it is very easy to slack off, right? Especially if we put so much on ourselves on top of having not just to manage this disease within ourselves, we have families that we have to take care of, right? We have to show
Mhm.
up for work. It's a lot, right?
It is.
So and then I was also talking to someone about this yesterday, how a lot of us in the lupus community have this A type personality, right? So I know.
Business, not just playing. Just
Right.
playing.
Like exactly. And that's because we have big hearts, right? We
Hmm.
wear our hearts on our sleeves. We want to give everything into everyone, right? We want to show up for everyone. And then we're also faced with these disparities and these
Hmm.
microaggressions as well. So we have so much on our backs. And
Hmm.
with all of that, we have to now give ourselves what we've been giving to others. That's the first thing. And then
Ooh.
we also have to delegate. We have to share some of the hard stuff, the hard things. We have to share that with others, especially because others want to help us a lot of the times, but we just want to take on that responsibility within ourselves. So, I know we're talking about consistency, but I also think that we have to provide the opportunity for others to help us with,
Yes.
asking someone to keep us accountable. And then the last
And
thing I would say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And then
Finish
the
your point.
last thing I would say about being consistent is to start with one goal that you want to meet. Like we talked about the commitment and how you want to reduce pain or lose weight, right? Start with one thing that you want to commit to and give it 1 month, give it 2 months, give it 3 months, right? So my goal right now is to reduce the inflammation and pain in my body, right? Start there. When you have one goal that you can reach every single day, it makes it more feasible, it makes it more attainable. So I always say start small, show up, and then turn those moments into momentum.
Yeah, I would say that will probably be my number one problem because I have so many goals.
and I want to have this whole routine in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. On top of, I have 2 kids and I'm a
Right.
fiance. So it's like a whole life that I
Mhm.
have to micromanage all the time. And so, like you
Mhm.
said, I give a lot to my family.
Mhm.
And it's very hard for me to prioritize myself. And I would love
Mhm.
to, because I know that I can show up for them better when
Mhm.
I'm in a better space. But I wanted to go back to something you were saying as far as the nutrition part of it. When you say, they tell you everything that we shouldn't eat, but then they don't tell us what we should eat. And my thing with that is, it's scary to trust anything to eat, even the good things, because
Yep.
it's like, when you don't have a lot of time, you know, just prepping whole foods in general is a lot. Like, that's a
Mhm.
4-hour job with just
Yep.
cleaning and rinsing and sanitizing and all
Yep.
of that. Like, what is an easier way to prepare your foods? And if you do want
Mm.
to get into that and prioritize that nutrition.
Yep. Yep. Some of the biggest hurdles in front of us is that the idea of preparation. Like you said, it can be a lot of work, and you can really go into a rabbit hole with this whole food eating journey. But I would say, in response to that, buy things that are already prepared. So I'm big into eating grains and legumes and vegetables, of course, nuts, seeds, those kind of things, in order to take away some of that preparation time. Sometimes I would buy canned beans, right?
Hmm.
Canned chickpeas. Um, you can even buy ready-made brown rice that you just
Hmm.
microwave for 2 minutes. Boom, you got some rice and beans. And then you could buy the salad, box that's already prepared. It has mixed greens in it. Boom, throw that on top. And then add an avocado for some healthy fats. If you want to jazz it up a bit, you could buy already made salad dressing to put on top. So I think it's really just about, if you're limited on time, buy things that are already easy to prepare and put them together, making sure you're diversifying with the nutrients, the colors, eat the rainbow. Um, yeah, I would say start there. I would say start there. And that might take you, as opposed to taking you 4 hours, that might take you an hour on Sunday or whatever day you have available, and then you might have to do that again Wednesday night, during the midweek. So yeah, I would say that start there.
Okay, so why don't you take us on a journey of your wellness routine, and how do you go about it? Because I know you do a lot of movement stuff too. So how do
Yes.
you incorporate all of that? Your food, your coaching, like how do you fit all of that
Woo!
in and prioritize yourself?
Right. It is a balancing act. As you just described, all of the things that you have to manage on a daily basis. So for in my household, it's myself, my partner, and my dog. I pray that I'll be fertile one day. That's my new goal, to figure that out with support of the doctors. So my day starts early, and my day starts early because of the preparation the night before.
Hmm.
Um, I get into the habit of getting into bed by between 9 and 10 p.m. And that's a whole process to make sure I have a wind down routine. And then the morning starts super early, whether it's around 6, 7 a.m. And I have 10,000 things in my head that I want to accomplish for the day. I always have to reel it back and say, okay, start with yourself first. And that's the reason why I wake up as early as I can, because I have client meetings, whether I have to walk my dog, just responsibilities I have for the day to day, or show up for my husband. So I make sure that I have me time in the morning, regardless of whatever starts. And that could be taking a walk outside. That could be going to the gym, or taking a yoga class at 7 a.m. So, me time is a priority. And then the day starts, right? Then I have my client meetings. But before then, I've already prepared as well, whether it's making a jar of oats with some spices and some nuts and seeds and maple syrup, so that it's readily available. But I like to prepare things, what I call as side dishes, so that I
Mhm.
could just put it all together in one dish, right? And I could diversify. So that would be my lunch, something that I just described to you with like the rice and the beans and the vegetables. I make sure that I have some time in the afternoon to take a break, to go outside. And then in the evening, um, my one of the most important things I have to do is listen to the circadian rhythm in terms of balancing the flow of my body. So, what does that mean? I make sure that my last meal is around the time that the sun sets, because that's going to align me with the flow of the environment, and that'll allow my body to rest, to digest. So that's very important to me. And like I said, my wind down routine, whether that's again taking another walk, or excuse me, having a rich conversation with a family member or a friend, just to take my mind off of the workday, and maybe an Epsom salt bath with some essential oils, asking hubby to give me a massage. So yeah, that's a typical day, like a Monday to Friday kind of vibe.
Okay, so in this routine of things, how would you prepare somebody who is looking to do a whole body experience? Because it's not just the food, like
Mhm.
you said, it's not just the body, it's the mental and the spiritual connection as well.
Yes.
So what do they do? Because a lot of things that you were saying about like showing up and things like that, I feel like that comes from
Mm.
a confidence space and
Yes.
in a assertiveness. It's not just like it's simple as just making a decision, but to walk
Mhm.
in that, what advice would you give a person to
Mhm.
be able to like move in that way when it comes to the mental part of it all? Because we
Beautiful
definitely
question.
definitely suffer from depression.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do we
Mm.
get there? How do we release that?
Yes, I'm gonna share a story because anxiety and depression wasn't something that I was very familiar with from like a diagnosis standpoint until a few months ago. So this
Mm-hmm.
September, October time, I just experienced the worst flare of my life in 2023. I was in and out of the hospital for the 4.5 months. I lost 1/3 of my body weight, 45 pounds, every symptom. It was pretty pervasive in terms of being chronically ill. And I lost hope. I lost
Mm.
hope. Even though fast forward, I am here right now today sharing my story, there were moments where I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. And it's so much. It's so much, right? Like I don't even think my words are articulating the impact of lupus on our communities. So I went through a lot, right? And with the help of my community, my mom, my hubby, my family, my friends, I fortunately had a lot of support, just to keep pushing. So, the very first thing that I did from an emotional and spiritual perspective was I wrote affirmations every single day. And it was almost like practicing reverse psychology because, like I said, although I felt hopeless, I felt anxious, I was sad, I was depressed, I was fearful. I knew that I had to tell myself a different story. So every single day, I have this book, where I wrote 3 affirmations, just three. And the affirmations would go like this: I am strong, I am healing, I am recovering. And those were the beginnings of me telling myself emotionally that I could fight this battle. I did that every single day for 7 months. And then when September, October hit, um, I realized that I was suffering at that point from post-traumatic stress, right?
Mm.
Because I went through all of this trauma. My body was just sort of fighting the fight, and I was starting to feel strong again. But when everything set into reality, my mindset didn't catch up. So I literally felt a wave of sadness and fear overtake me. And it was scary. It was so scary. I had to seek help. I had to look outside of me and my nice quaint space of individuals that were there for me. I had to look outside, and that's when I started getting therapy. So
That was your first experience with therapy?
yeah, that was my first experience with mental health therapy.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
so yep, so I started doing therapy. I showed up every single Friday telling the therapist what I was going through, and we worked together with certain techniques to figure out why I felt the way that I did. And although I'm feeling better today, that I realized that the emotional trauma is a space that I haven't really dug deeply into. And I'm also confident in my heart that when I do that and I explore that, and I want to share this more with my community as well, that I can, really overcome this heaviness that's on top of me.
Yeah, because
You
I was gonna ask you, how, what kind of emotional traumas do you feel like you stored in your body in order
know?
for you to have that physical response? Because I know I
Yep.
have a whole Tyler Perry movie worth of traumas.
Hey, hello. Hello.
So I could see why someone like me, and like you said, we care a lot.
Mm,
We have that heart. So,
mm,
and I don't have the heart to do what's being done to me in return.
mm,
So then you
mm.
storing that, kind of like that anger too. Like I wanna
Yep.
I wanna get back, but I'm just not my heart. So
Yep.
storing all those things in your body is just like, girl. And I was
Mm.
diagnosed at 20 years old.
Right.
So in 2008. So I was
Mm-hmm.
very, very young when I first got
Mm-hmm.
my diagnosis. So it was a definite like trauma.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
trauma,
Wow.
depression, anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
then with being so young, it was like I was ready to give up. Like it wasn't anything to live for. Like why? You question God.
Mm-hmm.
Why me?
Yep.
Why do I have to do this? Everybody else living their life. And it was just
Yep.
so many things. And I'm just so grateful to be here today,
Mm.
knowing that what he
Wow.
was pulling me through, I get to use it now. I get to use it
Yes.
on this podcast. I get to help other people with my
Mm.
story. And it's just when you're going through it, when you're suffering, you just do not think about that. You just want it to
Yes.
stop. You just want
Yep.
the pain to go away. And I'm just so
Mhm.
glad that God saved us. It's
Beautiful.
such a, like, we just don't even know how he's using us,
Mm-hmm.
but he is. And it
Absolutely.
you definitely have to dive deep into that emotion. So I encourage you to tap into that when you feel comfortable, because it
Mm-hmm.
does release a weight off of you, because you
Yes.
have that understanding and that clicking of like, okay, this is
Mm.
probably why I felt this way. I was
Mm.
storing this emotion.
Yep.
sorry,
Yes. Yes.
I was getting deep.
No, that was everything that we need to talk
Yeah.
about. And I'm so grateful that you have this platform. It's absolutely beautiful what you're doing for this community. And like you said, how you triumphed through the storm, right? You've been through it, you get it, and you're bringing in people that can relate to you, that understand what you're going through, what you have gone through, right? And that's going to not only make us stronger, but help our communities to figure out how to navigate this complex system.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing for me when it came to this platform was not that I felt alone, because I knew that I wasn't alone,
Mm.
but it was the community piece of taking the people that I see behind my screen and making
Mhm.
them real to me. How
Mhm.
can I reach Miss Genny and understand, like, how did she get into this? Helping my audience understand the easier ways, because we all have wisdom through
Yes.
our experience. So I was just trying to create a community and a platform of us that can share with others what we've done, because a lot of us are just behind the screen and we're just watching, and we really don't know the truths
Mm-hmm.
behind, well, how we see, like I said, your website is giving, but like, what is the truth behind that? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What is that really, that key piece that made her, stumble over into this and like really make it her life's work? And it's because God
Mm-hmm.
used you. He used your story,
Yes.
and the fact that you're open and willing to share, because there's so many people that still keep quiet about it,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
still keep quiet about the emotional trauma that's actually killing them.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm just grateful for us that we are open.
Amen to that. So powerful. Everything that you said is so powerful. And I also want to go back to a point where you talked about that. How do you tap into that emotional piece? So I talked about affirmations, but I want to really dig into what you're talking about now. Go back to that spiritual space. Get a
Mm-hmm.
regain your relationship with God, right? And your God might not be Jesus. It might be a different God, right? But I noticed that when I started going back to church and
Mm-hmm.
hearing the word, I
Mm-hmm.
was validated. You know, my journey is validated. And every time I show up on Sunday, whether it's going into the church physically or listening to the church online, I'm telling you, the pastor is preaching the word to me. So that gives me the faith to keep showing up, even when I don't feel like I have the capacity to. Somehow I do. And then when I show up, it's somebody sharing, hey, I don't think you realized, but you said this or you did this, and it
Oh
helped me
yeah.
in this way. So I'm like, God is good. We
Mm-hmm.
have to get back to that emotional space because this is bigger than us. What
Absolutely.
we're doing right here, this is bigger than what we can see. But God has given you the courage and the bravery to show up here and create this podcast. So thank you.
You know what? I will. It is God, okay? Because
Mhm.
your girl do not like being on camera.
Hey.
Am not a camera person at all. I would just hide from it as much as I could.
But
Yes, it seemed like I
you
would
are
be, but
amazing.
no, no, no. But thank
Amazing.
you.
It feels like you've been doing this for years, girl.
You know, it's God. I mean, when I pray
Mm,
to him, I really ask him for the confidence to do this. And because I don't feel like I am worthy, I don't feel like I am equipped for this. This doesn't seem like the life work that I wanted to choose. Honestly, I just wanted to be a mom. But
mhm,
in my works of being a mom, I felt like it was something bigger than that. Like it was
mhm,
something more to me than just being these babies' mom. And that's when I started tapping into the podcasting. In 2019,
mhm,
I started this podcast. So, and
mhm.
I definitely was not consistent, but here we are.
Here we are, and it's okay to start over.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had some more growing to do and
Mhm,
healing to do to be able to speak, because that's one thing about me. I'm gonna tell the truth, and I'm
mhm,
gonna be as authentic as I can be. So I'm
mhm,
not gonna share anything that I haven't experienced myself.
mhm. Yep.
So let's go back to
Yes.
you. So
Mhm.
looking ahead, what exciting projects do you have planned for the future? Or like, can you give us a sneak peek
Mhm.
of what's going on with you?
Yes, I do have a lot of exciting things that I'm working through and on. I'm grateful that you noticed my website because that was one big project that I wanted to commit to really authentically and unapologetically tell my story. So I know that that has been a foundation for people to find me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I've also created something called the Lupus Connection, which is an empowerment circle for people with lupus. And my partner and I, Rika, she has a page called Living Lupus Together. We started
Yeah, I work
this,
with her.
and yeah, and we started this together, and the community is growing. We're meeting on Zoom every other month. We have the schedule planned until the rest of the year. We're bringing in what we call lupus champions to speak on a specific topic, and we're growing from there. We're going to create this, we are creating this community that empowers one another, because I found that a lot of the times that I went to these lupus support group meetings, in some respect it was helpful, a lot of the times it focuses on the trauma and just reliving the trauma. And I didn't find a space where people were trying to look beyond the healthcare system. So that's why I wanted to start this, not a support group, but an empowerment circle. So we have that plan for the rest of the year. Look out for announcements on that. That's going to be very exciting. I'm still doing one-to-one coaching. I want to migrate more into community coaching focus. So I'm still
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out to what capacity that will be in. But I also just want to live a softer life,
Yeah.
and what that is going to include for me now is I might go back into my specialized skill set of working in audit and accounting. I want to focus on financial security and stability. So I could be able to grow my own land, grow my own food, have my own food.
Yeah.
And I started studying herbalism. So I want to help people navigate how do you take pharmaceutical medication and plant medicine safely, right? I want to be able to share that. But ultimately, my goal is to write, to share more, whether it's through blogging for now. But eventually, I want to write a book, a New York Times bestseller. I'm going to put that out there in the
All
universe.
right, girl, you already got it.
Hey.
So there is something that you said that I feel like is very important, and I'm speaking for myself on this one. The financial part of everything.
Mm-hmm.
For those who have been with lupus for a very long time, and then still most of us still cannot work.
Mm-hmm.
And get that earned paycheck. So my thing is, because you have that background, like, is that something that you would be open to teaching more about?
Woo.
Because the financial burden is probably my biggest
Mm.
hardship. It's not the physical pain, it's not the swelling, it's not the medicine, it's not the injections, it's literally the financial burden. Because of my A-type personality, I want to
Mm.
be the provider. I want to be
Yes.
the person that, is bringing in my own way, my own income.
Mm.
And because I can't physically work that hard job, standing on my feet,
Yes.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
how do I get to a place where I can
Wow.
financially, because podcasting don't really make anything, or at least I
Yeah.
don't now. But I'm
Yes.
speaking into existing that I'm finding different avenues to be able
Yes.
to generate income online, because I would
Right.
love to make some change. I've been dealing with this since I was 20. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
long time to not really be able to see myself go to where I want to go, because of
Mm.
the mindset that it puts you in by being on disability.
Yeah. Woo! Woo, woo, woo. I'm grateful that you asked me that question, because it is, I've thought about it. I thought about sharing it. And that is a part of holistic healing. We have to
Mm-hmm.
be financially secure, right? Because money provides resources.
And
Fact.
just a softer
Period.
life in
A
general.
softer life in general.
Because
So,
we can't afford those fruits and vegetables, but we want to eat them.
yep.
We want
Yep.
to be able to freely be able to take trips and go on environmental things
Mm.
that would help us spiritually to connect with God. It's just certain things that cost money.
Yes. Okay. So, a few things on that. I will honor sharing more information on that. Whether that's figuring out how to navigate through the disability, and think about generating money, especially being an entrepreneur. we are having a financial management support group meeting. That's going to be around the summertime. And we have two individuals. Both of them have lupus. One specifically focuses on financial management, and then someone is studying to be a financial planner. I think that's the right term. So that's going to happen in the summer. I'll definitely share more information on that. But just thinking about how can we create financial stability with the resources that we already have, whether that's focusing on improving your credit score, so that you have access to more assets, right? A lot of the times we look at credit cards as liabilities, but there's ways to use them as assets. But we just
Right.
have to know that, right?
Yeah.
Um, yes, I'm honored that you
Look, I
asked
gave you
me
some
that question.
content. Content.
What? What?
Because
That's so
that's
crazy.
probably the biggest thing that I've been
Mm,
researching, trying to understand for myself, is because I run into these people where I follow, and they're all about digital marketing and all about digital products and sales, and I feel like there is a lucrative way
mm-hmm.
to get into that, and I'm fearful because I don't want to buy into something that the audience can't even afford. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, even if I invest in it to learn the skill, I'm willing to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
my whole goal is to help people who feel like how I feel or
Right.
have felt. You know what I'm saying? How do we
Yeah.
cross this threshold to
Mm-hmm.
financially win? I'm tired of seeing other people.
Come on.
I'm just telling the truth.
Right.
I want to win
There's
too. I want to go to Aruba.
yes, there's money out there for us.
It
To your
is.
point. We
It
just have to
is.
figure out how to tap into it. I'm willing to brainstorm with you. You know, we could continue this conversation offline to figure
Yes.
it out.
Yeah. Absolutely. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So, how can others who are interested in working with you to improve their health and well being, especially those living with lupus, get involved or benefit from your services?
Yes, I would say firstly, follow me on social media. I am Genny Mack, GENNYMACK, on all platforms. That's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Um, if you go to my website, jennymack.com, and subscribe to my newsletter, I publish relevant information across the holistic spectrum, whether that's focused on mind, body, and spirit. I post a newsletter every single week, so that'll go right into your inbox. And I offer a free 15-minute clarity call if you have any questions and you want to figure out how to get started on your holistic healing journey and to figure out what works for you. We can start that conversation. My DMs are open. Yeah, I say those are all of the ways that you can connect with me.
Okay, y'all, and y'all have to go check out this website. When I tell you, it is A1. It is so much information on there. It's clean, it's clear, it's direct. I love it. It's very few websites that I find that's specific to lupus that have that much information, or specific to what you do. It's kind of like you're trying to figure out whether even my own website is not clear on exactly what I do. So I appreciate you giving
Thank
us that
you.
information.
Thank you.
All
Yes.
right.
This
So
is
thank you
awesome.
so much for talking to me and giving me so much of your
Thank
time.
you. Yes. Thank you so much for having me here. And I look forward to reconnecting.
Absolutely. So until next time, you guys, peace and be intentional.
Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Lupus Speaks Podcast. And I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and valuable insights today. So if you have any questions, comments, or stories that you would like to share or feedback, please reach out to me on my website at www.lupusspeaks.org. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to stay updated on our latest episodes and to join this growing lupus community. Remember, you are not alone on this lupus journey, and I am with you. So stay strong, stay positive, and until next time, you guys, peace and be intentional.